Hi, my name is Will Alexander. Thank you to the Global CIO Forum for having me today. I'm the CIO at Benevis. We're a dental services organization. Oftentimes, IT leaders get asked, are you more of a CIO or a CTO? I'm definitely a CIO. My background is from the business operations side of a company, not technology. Specifically, my background is working for companies whose main product or service is not technology. Within these companies, I lead teams that through the use of technology, create efficiencies and insights for the business in order to drive revenues or decrease costs. So in the paradigm of thinking in terms of people, process, and technology, my strengths are in the people and process areas. Now, it just so happens that I believe as long as you have the financial means, that acquiring good technology is relatively easy. However, finding good talent and creating sound processes to connect people and technology is difficult. One last note. I live in Atlanta, Georgia. The community of IT leaders here is very strong and tight-knit. We frequently share leading practices to help others as much as we can. Much of my strategies and tactics are not just my thoughts, but the thoughts of other CIOs who have been successful in their respective careers. My guess is that none of what I'm about to talk about will be novel to you, but my hope is that it's a good reminder or refresher of leading practices for any CIO or IT leader. Companies have faced unprecedented challenges in 2020. For many, their normal course of business was disrupted, and for some, it continues to be disrupted. We will inevitably get back to something that we can call normal, but it probably won't be the same normal that we had in February pre-COVID. And inevitably, we will be disrupted again. Hopefully not to this magnitude, but even if it's just the typical disruption that comes with competition in your industry. Here are some key traits that I've witnessed successful IT leaders display during times of disruption or adversity. The first is that successful IT leaders remain trustworthy and dependable. They actually become more dependable. During the pandemic especially, IT leaders really just needed to deliver on the basics and be dependable, ensuring that their users could continue doing their job, whether at home or in the office. We needed to make sure that information still flowed throughout our organization. Connectivity and accessibility were paramount. Also, no one expects perfection, especially when the world's been turned upside down. However, people do expect transparency and to be informed. Users really just wanted to know how they could continue performing their job. They weren't expecting the best experience ever, but they were needing to know what to do. Strong IT leaders took the initiative to proactively create new work procedures and process flows for the overall business, and to communicate these processes and process flows, and to remind their users what the everyday normal course of business procedures were. You see, when disruption occurs, people tend to forget how to do things, like how to get on the VPN. Top IT leaders and their teams proactively reached out with reminders on how to do everyday tasks. And reaching out was not just in the form of a mass email to the user base, it was in the form of phone calls and text messages to specific employees. When you think about it, IT was in the best position to take on this task of ensuring continuity in the business. We have a better visibility than anyone else when it comes to how various departments and business lines work together. So who better to ensure that people could still do their jobs effectively? Kind of building on that, when the pandemic hit, companies' plans, initiatives, budgets, forecasts became outdated, irrelevant in the case of forecasts. Plans and initiatives were often put on hold. In short, strategies changed. Even if your company wasn't directly affected, you were most likely being asked to slow down or stop projects. Then when companies were trying to figure out the impact and what they needed to do next, what their strategy should be, that took time. In order to do these exercises effectively, business leaders quickly needed data and insights. Often this meant that data in accompanying analytics, different data in accompanying analytics than what your normal day-to-day reporting was. I've experienced and heard from other leaders that the most successful CIOs had processes in place to quickly get new data sets to the business. They also had technology that would allow their business users to quickly digest this data that was sometimes new to them. And finally, successful IT leaders had team members who were well versed in the business and could help users analyze the data to make optimal decisions. As much of a pain it is to create and maintain having a solid data governance in place, it was really helpful as users were wanting to perform analysis that was slightly different than what they were normally used to. Quickly tying this back to my first point, having the right people and processes in place helps to build trust with the users. In this case, it was trust in the data and the analysis that was being provided to help make business decisions during the pandemic. Now, once these data sets were obtained and analyzed, the businesses were trying to decide, should they restore operations or redesign operations? In most cases, companies needed to do both. From an IT standpoint, CIOs used this time to look internally to do the same. Did IT just need to keep doing their job as they always did, or did they need to redesign? Nimble IT leaders used the time during the pandemic to make sure they had the right employees in the right places. The pandemic really made IT leaders, as well as everyone else in the business, take a hard look at their strategies and initiatives to ensure they were creating value. Some IT initiatives were stopped altogether, but some were definitely accelerated. Again, the IT leaders that have been able to quickly pivot or focus or refocus on the initiatives that will truly make the organization more productive. Once organizations determined if they were going to restore their business or redesign, and again, most companies did a combination, they looked for help. As the pandemic was adversely affecting businesses, strong CIOs were looking to provide innovative solutions to help, either help get the core business back on its feet or help the business pivot to new business lines. Innovative solutions doesn't have to mean revolutionary or groundbreaking. Innovative is simply making an improvement, making a business process more effective in a way that no one has tried before. Now, in some situations, especially if you've built a significant amount of trust, and if the situation is so bad that the business will try anything, innovative solutions will just be accepted. However, this is rare. Usually the business is going to be skeptical about an innovative solution proposed by IT. So how do we get our solution to be accepted? I have found that by creating prototypes and proofs of concept is the best way. It's difficult to verbally explain technology and how a user will interact with it. For example, it's hard for operations or marketing to really understand what it means when you say, I'm going to create dashboards with great visualizations for interpreting trends in the business and predicting what will happen in the future. However, when shown a mock-up or prototype, the conversation can be much more effective. And sometimes you just have to be intentional and carve out work cycles for your teams to prototype and create proofs of concepts to be able to take them to the business. Furthermore, speaking in tech lingo does not go over well and it's not effective. The most effective conversations that I've had when trying to persuade the business or pitch a new concept is to incorporate metrics that they're familiar with. Specifically, I try to use metrics that they're responsible for and evaluated on. Metrics like revenue, margin, EBITDA, overhead expenses, to name a few. The CIOs that I've known to have the most success were the ones that were able to clearly articulate how they plan to drive a specific metric in a positive direction and were able to show some type of prototype or example. Successful CIOs talk about how they're going to make their users and their peers successful, how they're going to make them look good. Because of the significant impact that the pandemic has had on many companies' financials, in the form of reduced revenues and increased expenses, companies in the short term can become shareholder focused. And we have to fight that mentality and remain stakeholder focused. We have to remember that as long as we take care of our customers and our employees, that the shareholders will be just fine. Sure, we have to make some short-term decisions as we try to get back to pre-COVID levels, but we can't lose sight of what made us successful. The last trait that I've seen successful CIOs display during the pandemic has been to show high levels of support to their team, to their peers, and to their CEO. As the business line leaders are trying to figure out the new direction and undoubtedly facing many new demands and challenges, successful CIOs are right there with them, giving them a high degree of support and empathy when needed. More than ever, they work to create a sense of us as opposed to IT versus the business. Not only our peers, but our CEOs need our support too. I've heard from several CIOs that their CEOs are being pulled in multiple directions. These CEOs are looking for their teams to step up and take on added responsibility. CIOs are in an ideal position to step up and accept that responsibility. Finally, strong IT leaders are as present as ever with their teams. They've doubled down on the one-on-one meetings and the breakout team meetings. They make an intentional effort to check in with all of their team members. Many of our employees have faced or are facing personal challenges. Their personal lives have been disrupted too. Strong leaders will show empathy and support for the well-being of their employees. They definitely create a culture of employee first. In summary, during these times of uncertainty and disruption, CIOs are in a great position to not only support the business, but to create value and drive the business forward by being dependable, nimble, collaborative, demonstrating knowledge of the business, and proactively showing their support to all. As I said in the beginning, these traits are not novel, but they definitely do distinguish strong IT leaders. Thanks again, Global CIO Forum. I look forward to the rest of the event.